Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, August 29th. LA Galaxy getting ready to close out the month with a trip to Toronto. Galaxy landed this afternoon after spending some time in downtown Boston. Galaxy walking away with a 2-1 win over New England Revolution on a Sunday night. That was pretty interesting. We want to talk a whole bunch about that. There's some really great play by the Galaxy and maybe rounding into form. Last 10 games are playoff form. Maybe the Galaxy are trying to find that playoff form as we continue. So we're going to talk about that, get you ready for Toronto. Any news nuggets that fall in between that, we will certainly get to as well. To help me do that, he is back. We're always glad to have him back, too. It's Kevin, the Panda Baxter. Kev, how's it going?
Hey, did you get your playoff tickets yet?
No.
Yeah,
let's not count our chickens, sir.
No, I'm coming in hot on this one. If you're a political junkie like me, you're familiar with Nate Silver and his group 538.
Yes.
They do a lot of the political, not punditry. It's a statistical thing. There's no blue and red involved. It's just they look at the statistics, they look at the polls, and they have a mathematical formula for breaking them down. And they do a lot with sports. In fact, I think Nate Silver for a while worked for ESPN.
Right, correct.
And I tell you all that to tell you this. They have a probability for MLS playoff teams. And going into the New England game at the end of last week, the Galaxy had a 64% chance of making the playoffs, according to Nate Silver. With that win at New England, they have an 81% chance of making the playoffs now. They even have a better than average chance of opening at home, which was surprising to me. But what's important about that, when you look at the teams they're competing with, so the Galaxy, 81% chance of making the playoffs. Seattle's at 33%, Portland's at 23%, Colorado 11%, Vancouver 9%. Those are the teams the Galaxy are fighting against. And then when you look at the points per game, Galaxy, LAFC at 2.11. This is the Western Conference. LAFC 2.11, Austin 1.89, Minnesota 1.63, Dallas 1.48, RSL 1.44, the Galaxy 1.42. So they're sixth in points per game.
Right.
Nashville is the only other team above 1.3. So all the numbers make it, if the Galaxy just hold form. And by the way, speaking of form, they are 2-0-1 in their last three games, the longest unbeaten streak they've had since April.
Right.
Only one other team in the Western Conference has been hotter than them over the last three games. Minnesota won all three. The Galaxy was 7 points in 3 games, second hottest team in the Western Conference right now. That's the way you want to close the season.
Galaxy also have 7 points in their last 5 games. So if you want to stretch that out a little bit, they have the same number.
No, I don't.
It
blows up the whole argument. Greg Vanney, I think I told you the same thing in a different conversation, but he told me he doesn't really consider the playoffs or the season to start into the last 10 games. And by that he means, look, if you're out of it after 24 games, you're not going to catch up. So, just put that aside. The last 10 games, that's when you begin to build for the playoffs. That's when you build momentum. That's when you try to make sure all the parts are working. And his point is, a lot of teams win Supporters Shield and then don't do very well in the playoffs. They have a great season, maybe the first 4 or 5 months of the season, and then they don't do all that well in the playoffs. And he has that experience. He's competed for a couple of Supporters Shields, won one and went out early in the playoffs the year that he lost by 3 points in the Supporters Shield race. But when you look at the teams that kind of are wild card teams, in other leagues, the teams that come in 5th, 6th, 7th in the standings, those are the teams that are coming in hot. They won a tough battle to get into the playoffs. They generally come in with a lot of momentum and do really, really well. And I think that's what Greg Vanney's talking about. If you can have any 10-game stretch in the season when you want to be doing really well, it's the final 10 games. Galaxy have started that stretch pretty well.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I don't want to listen. I said and very clearly, I wouldn't be surprised if the LA Galaxy got 0 points on this road trip. Having 3 points already, mission complete. Where's George W. Bush flying in on the jet? Mission complete. All right. So whatever happens in Toronto happens, and I think the Galaxy. It's funny. I actually just looking at the way that they won in New England, they increase in my mind their chances of winning against Toronto just by the way that they were able to grind out a win against New England. I thought just looking at the way that they have been playing, I think there has been some consistency in sort of how it's gone. Certainly a 2-0 lead again at halftime. I mean, you look at Seattle and what would have happened had the Galaxy been able to hold on to those extra 2 points instead of just getting one. Being 2 points further ahead, sort of putting them into that playoff picture and how it looks. I asked Greg Vanney after the game, Kevin. I said, do like the optics matter? Does the visual of seeing your team above the playoff line every time? Because going into the game, the Galaxy had a chance to basically, if they didn't win the game, to drop below the line, right? Again,
they were below the line going into the game.
Yeah,
It's weird. They came into the weekend below the line, then they went above the line. I think that's going to be going on the rest of the season.
Yeah, but also things move after every game, but like they're not completely over until the weekend is over. So I know people freak out whenever things move like inter-weekend or inter-week or those types of things. They always end up like fixing themselves, and then you actually get to see where they are. So the Galaxy, yes, they started below the line, but technically started the week above the line. So they maintained their position is what they ended up doing by winning that. So For me, I asked him, is there a visual sort of, does it make you feel better almost whenever you see yourself above the line? He's like, you know what? He goes, I don't know that it matters. He goes, I just like, and he was saying this over and over. He said it before the game. He said it after the game. He's like the grit, the determination, the competition. He goes, that's what he wanted to see. He wanted to see those things. And I think he predicted this game very well in terms of, one, his lineup, and two, what it was going to look like. And he warned us all, Kevin, beforehand. He said, this is not going to be a pretty game, right? He said New England is not a place for pretty football, pretty soccer, right? Because the turf plays slower than you want it to. The ball bounces weird. And it's always a difficult place to try to win. And if you do go in and win, it's because you have this mindset of you're going to grind it out. And I'll be the first one to say that if you look at this game and you look at the stats and you watch the game and you watch New England ping stuff off the crossbar and off the uprights and off Jonathan Bond and in different ways, New England had the chances to tie and win that game multiple times.
Well, they outshot the Galaxy 19-8, I think, and Jonathan Bond made a season high 7 saves.
Yeah, and
again, another good game by Jonathan Bond, and it's almost lost in the Riqui Puig pass and in the Aguirre goal. You almost kind of overlook Jonathan Bond, but again, another really standout performance.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at men of the match, you can look at Chicharito. You can look at Jonathan Bond. You could look at Daniel Aguirre. I would almost push the Daniel Aguirre story a little bit more than maybe some of the others. Chicha had a goal and an assist, so it's pretty hard. Main team of the week as well. So he does that, but how can you not look at some of the stuff that Riqui did or other players? But they were opportunistic. They were smart. They took their chances and they finished. And doing that, that's how they won that game. And they hung on by the skin of their teeth. The 8 minutes of stoppage time, by the way, I don't know what and who was counting the minutes, but good Lord, that seemed like about 3 minutes past what I thought would be the upper limit of that. And so you got that. Just a lot of things went the Galaxy's way, but I think that Greg Vanney at least set this team up to be successful, in this particular game. I thought it was an interesting lineup, Kevin, just from the fact that he knew he was going into New England. He knew that it was going to be a tough game, and then he knew, unlike he knew that he wasn't going to be traveling with Mark Delgado, and then eventually he knew that Raheem Edwards, who's dealing with some hamstring issues, was not going to be available for this game either, and probably a good idea not to play him on turf as well. So the Galaxy with a 5-3-2, and I would say that's a pretty accurate representation of sort of how they started, except that in a really strange sort of turn of events, and I don't even know if it's strange, it looked completely planned, is Chicharito didn't spend his time up there chasing balls They let Kevin Cabral run up top and chase things around and sort of apply pressure and do those things. And she just laid a little bit under as a playmaker. And then a 5-man back line with Gasper, Williams, Koulibaly, Depew, and Araujo. And then you had Brugman, you had Daniel Aguirre starting in place of Mark Delgado. And then you have Riqui playing in the center and getting his first start. So I actually thought that was a very defensive lineup, which it turned out to be, Kevin. But at the same time, Galaxy were really able to pick their spots on the offensive side. And I think if they can sort of set up that way on the road to continue down here, they can steal a couple more games as they go.
Well, and you talked about New England, tough place to play. That's the kind of lineup you want in a difficult place to play. You want to be defensive. You want to make sure that you do not create any mistakes and hope the other team creates enough for you to score. You don't want to go out there and try to get in a shootout on a field that's a difficult place to play. What about Edwards and Delgado for Toronto? Because both those guys as former Toronto players, I think they were both really looking forward to going back home.
Yeah, I would say that so Raheem Edwards is with the team. They were hopeful, and Greg Vanney was hopeful that he was doing some running. He was receiving treatment. They were hopeful that he could possibly be ready for Toronto. So that's one. And then Delgado did not travel with the team. He was back in LA. Now, Greg told us after the game, he said that Delgado had plane tickets, plane reservations to be in Toronto should they think that he could make it. In terms of he was ready to go. Delgado, I believe, is working or dealing with something to do with his jaw, Kevin, from what I understand.
Yeah, he said that problem all year.
Yes, and it's something that has come early. It's either the jaw or the cheek or something, and we've never been able to get clarification. It's like people don't want to talk about it, which is a little weird, but at the same time, that's what he's been dealing with, and he's played through it sometimes. I mean, Vanney had sort of intimated that he played a couple games where like Delgado doesn't even remember the game because he was in so much pain and those types of things. So that's, from my understanding, sort of, at least I was hinted at that this is a continuation of that. It's a non-COVID related either illness or sickness. Maybe it's an infection of some sort. I don't know. It's really interesting how we're not getting a clear picture of it.
Well, and speaking of not getting a clear picture, and you mentioned COVID, one thing that people may have missed is this game is in Toronto, and we've seen the Angels in the last week have to call a couple players up because they had players on the roster who were not vaccinated and would not get vaccinated, couldn't go to Canada. You have to cross an international border. Canada has different rules. So the Angels had to call players up and leave some guys home. Turned out a major league player from Orange County got his minor league player from Orange County got his major league debut, played all 3 games. So it worked out well. My point is we asked, and we never got a definitive answer that I know of from the Galaxy, whether anybody would not be able to make that trip because of COVID. And my first thought when I heard Delgado didn't make the trip to New England was, but that didn't make any sense because he played in Toronto last year. So he would have, by Canadian law, would have been, able to come back. He would have had the requisite shot. So it sounds like everything there is in order. And, soccer is a different game from baseball because so many of these guys are coming internationally. Look at the Galaxy roster, how many international players they have. Right. These are guys that can't come into the United States or into Canada unless they've been vaccinated. Now you or I, as an American citizen, we're living here. We could be in the U.S. without being vaccinated, but we couldn't go to Canada. But so many of the players on the Galaxy have had to get vaccinated just to come into the country. Yeah, so they're good.
We were at least pointed in the direction that said it didn't look like anybody who would be, if there was anybody, and this person was unaware that there was anybody, but if there was anybody, that they didn't think it would be anybody who would be in like the 18-man roster on a regular basis type of thing. So if it was anybody else, it might be down the roster type stuff. Now, don't know, but as you pointed out, it could also be like, well, they're not on the 18-man roster because they're not vaccinated. So we'll keep an eye on that whole thing. But Delgado is not that. At least not that I understand at all. And so this again, somebody said maybe it's a tooth or something. I don't think it's a tooth, but it could be a tooth. I have no idea. Really, we're guessing at this point, but we know it's something to do with, let's see, what was the word that was probably used the most? The head. I don't think it's brain, but I think it's like, jowls.
You got a bad jawbreaker somewhere.
Yeah, too much. By the way, a $5 super chat. Somebody, Jacob says, is Kevin using a sick GTR racing gamer chair? Next, we're going to find out he's got the full RGB LED mouse and keyboard as well. Respect. So, by the way, I happen to know Kevin's wife bought that chair for him, so he has no idea any of the words that you just asked.
No.
Yeah, he is.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Did he say RGB? Is that like Ruth Bader
RGB?
Ginsburg?
No,
Yeah,
no,
RGB.
that's not Ruth Gator.
It is the Man City colors though. Or yeah, Man City colors, sort of,
kind of, almost. No. Yeah, you can catch Kevin on his live Twitch stream. Yeah, that's Panda Pod Racing. I'm pretty sure is what it is. Yeah, just go on that Twitch channel. That's where you're gonna find him. So thank you for that super chat. Appreciate it. But Kevin has no idea what you just asked him, and he will probably text me later to find out what you actually said. I really let's get into the game just a little bit, because I mean, obviously there's two huge plays, and to see the first one pull off when Delgado wasn't there and Daniel Aguirre was put in there, I tweeted out before the game started. Basically, I said, Aguirre has some huge shoes to fill, because you're talking about a guy in Delgado who really is a pace setter. He's usually an engine. He usually dictates how fast the Galaxy play and which direction they're going. And he's like the air traffic controller of the LA Galaxy. He sort of makes things go and things orbit around him, and he keeps track of everything. So when he can't go immediately, and on some group chats, I was like, I don't see it, because I love Daniel Aguirre, but you're asking him to step up into a huge position here and huge shoes in a big game on the road that is super tough. It's a lot going against him. Very happy to be totally wrong. I was right, by the way. If Aguirre played well, the Galaxy would play well. He played outstanding. And not only that, Kevin, he scores a goal. He scores his first MLS goal, and he does it on a run that I'm not sure Delgado makes. It's just Delgado usually doesn't take that, but if you watch the first goal again, and this is Chicharito, and we talked about it. Chicharito actually said it too. He said, the positioning of Cabral, and the positioning of Aguirre, and just where everybody was when that play started was perfect to unsettle New England, and it split New England's backs. They were both overcommitted to the outside, and Aguirre saw a route straight up the middle, and he made the run. And Chicharito saw that run, Kevin, and he found Aguirre great. And how many times have we seen Cabral be in sort of that similar position, which is he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he overthinks it. And Aguirre took that shot from well out in a good position, right, in a good spot, left-footed, bends his hips around, curves the ball around the goalkeeper, and puts that into the left side of the net. Altogether, an outstanding goal. One of the better goals we've seen from the LA Galaxy this year, just in terms of positioning, build-up, execution, and finally putting the ball in the back of the net. Everything was perfect in that, which is really interesting, because Riqui's ball to Chicharito, Kevin, mirrors a lot of those same things in terms of positioning and step, except that Riqui's ball is one of the most ridiculous passes we've seen from anybody in an LA Galaxy uniform in a very long time. You tried to take it back to David Beckham. I'm sure it's not that far, but I can't honestly think off the top of my head of anybody who's played a ball down the middle through different levels like that to find somebody perfectly in stride in a long time.
Well, let's talk about Chicharito for a minute, because he has a goal and assist in the first 15 minutes. This is only the third game in his 57 games with the Galaxy where he's had a goal and an assist. Third time. He's done 2 of those games have been in the last 4 games. Okay, so Chicharito's starting to wake up and actually maybe expanding his game a little bit. In his last 4 games, he scored 5 goals. He now has 31 goals in his Galaxy career. He has 199 goals in his club career, so one more for 200. But that's kind of just the start, because the Galaxy, as we said, kind of hot now, kind of starting to pick up the pace a little bit with Chicharito getting hot. This year, when Chicharito scores, he scored in 10 games. He has 12 goals in 10 games. The Galaxy are 7-2-1 when Chicharito scores. They're 4-9-3 when he doesn't. In his Galaxy career, 57 games over 3 years, he has 31 goals. Now, we talked about this before. You might not take 10 goals a season, but remember, the 2020 season was shortened to 22 games by COVID. He was hurt a lot. He's got again, he's scoring half a goal a game, so he's scoring a goal every 2 games. That may not be DP production, but when you factor in the injuries and all the other things and different teammates and all that, that's not bad. It's not the disaster that a lot of people predicted. It may not be the high point that I thought he was going to do, but that's pretty good. And then again, when you look at the season, 7-2-1, the Galaxy are when he scores. That kind of talks about how important he is to what they do.
Yeah, well, and the other reason is he tends to score early in a game, right? Like usually you get Chicha in a first half goal. That usually, at least that's off the top of my head. I haven't actually gone through and tallied it, but in my mind, Chicha scores early. And when Chicha scores early, the Galaxy score early. When the Galaxy score early, the Galaxy win, right?
10-1 and 2. 10-1 and 2 when they score first.
So you look at all those things combined. I mean, for me, one, Chicharito finishing that particular play, and we've seen him miss some of those as well, but finishing that particular play was great. You go up to 2-0. The celebration after, did you see any of the video afterwards, Kevin, of Chicha getting accosted by a fan? And I've had people who tell me, oh, it looked like he was just celebrating with him. And I'm like, it started that way. And then all of a sudden, this fan who ran out onto the field, who gets in the Galaxy's huddle, right, when they're celebrating with Chicharito, gets his hands around Chicharito, and then Chicharito sort of wants to get away, and then this guy's hands sort of come up around Chicharito's neck, and now people are ready to throw hands, and they're pushing this guy away. I mean, it was Galaxy players who pulled this fan off of Chicharito. We asked, Damian Calhoun asked Chicha what the guy was like there, and he goes, I don't know, he was just a fan. He goes, I couldn't tell what he was trying to say. He goes, because we were there celebrating. He goes, but he was like really, really drunk, so it was really hard to understand him at all. And Chicha didn't seem bothered by it, but we've seen this continuing trend across all major sports, right? But especially in this case, in New England, where Chicha could have been in danger. I mean, somebody's going to get hurt eventually, whether it's a star or somebody else or however that goes. And I feel like MLS, I feel like stadiums in general aren't prepared for basically what is happening with these fans who come onto the field and do all this stuff. It's a dangerous trend. Happens at Dignity Health Sports Park as well, and we've seen it many times.
Well, people think it's innocent because the guys want to come over and celebrate with the players. We don't know that. I mean, what was the tennis player, Monica Seles, right? The one who got stabbed in the back at a tournament in Europe, and her career was never the same again. It was a fan that came up. She thought he wanted an autograph or something, stabbed her in the back, and pretty much ended her career as a top flight competitive tennis player. Something really bad could have happened to Chicharito. Again, we don't know what that fan's intention was.
No, we don't. By the way, $5.
We still don't.
Yeah, we still don't. $5 super chat from What The, and this person says, Galaxy fans looking at those 3 points like the way that Efrain Alvarez looks at Riqui Puig. Did you see the photo of Efrain looking at Riqui after a game? How do I say this nicely? Because I don't necessarily enjoy the Efra loves McDonald's memes that sort of seem to follow him around, but at the same time, I do love a good joke, and that's a pretty good joke. It was like, I think Eric actually put a hamburger over Ricky's head and then showed that picture, and if you could understand how that would fit in, that's what this person is saying. So what the $5 super chat, thank you.
I'll try to rescue you out of that disaster that you just went down with a segue to say that, speaking of Efrain Alvarez and Aguirre, Greg had to have seen something in training that knew that Aguirre could handle this moment, because there was Efrain, Vasquez is around, Kleshton's around, he puts Aguirre into that spot in that big a game, and he obviously knew he could handle it. And then kudos to Aguirre to stand up and do it, because other players have been given that chance and did not come through. I mean, here's a guy that, did you think that with 9 games left in the season, we'd be talking about Aguirre as being a guy who might have saved the Galaxy season? I don't even know if we'd be talking about him being on the 18-man roster. And now all of a sudden he's played a key moment in a big game that may start the rest of the playoffs.
There is something about Aguirre that, for me, is every time we see him play, we're always impressed, right? It's one of those guys who's like, every time you think that he's sort of at this level, maybe he's a little bit higher than the level that you think it is. And every time he gets tested and put in situations, he seems to perform. The Galaxy were in a hurry to get out of Dodge last night, right? Basically, they had to leave Foxborough, which is not near downtown Boston.
It's about 35 miles, yeah.
Right. So, and they were going to stay in downtown Boston because they had a flight that was going to leave in the afternoonish out of Boston to then head up to Toronto. And so that was sort of the plan. And so they wanted to get out of there because it was a trek, whole deal. So we didn't get as much time as we normally get, and that's fine. Travel schedules, we try to work with whatever we can do whenever that happens. So we didn't get as much time with Greg, but I would love to sit down and pick Greg's brain on Daniel Aguirre, because to me, every time you've asked him to do something, he's done it. he played, most of that game in a sort of defensive position and backing up, Riqui Puig. And I thought that he did a great job. I thought that Brugman played well. I know there's people who are sort of upset Brugman was giving away some balls. I see it. Brugman's idea is to get in there and scrap a little bit. I thought Aguirre did a good job of scrapping and getting in there and involved. I thought they muddied up the center of the field and really forced New England outside. And listen, New England's strength is outside. I asked Greg about the 5 backs, what he was trying to look for that. And he's like, listen, we know that they're cross happy. They live and die by the cross. And so we wanted to put more guys out on the wing to stop that. I thought Gasper had a good game. I love the people who hate Chase Gasper. They're my new favorite people. I thought Chase Gasper had a perfectly fine game. No problems. I thought Julian Araujo had a perfectly fine game. No problems there. I like the 3 center backs that played with Williams, Depew, and Koulibaly. I think you should be concerned about Koulibaly's health status going in. I'm telling you now, and Greg Vanney has said this a couple different times, Greg Vanney values Koulibaly over Williams. All right? So Sega is his guy more than Derek Williams is. I think he likes Sega's decision-making and his positioning better than Williams, because I think I like Williams' physicality more, but Greg might be a little more technical on that. So he likes Koulibaly. With him possibly being injured and he had to come out of this game, that's a problem. One of the biggest things that sort of set the Galaxy back, I thought, was whenever they transitioned into a 4-man back line, whenever Koulibaly got hurt, and then they sort of tried to put another 4 midfielders in, and I think they had Sasha try to sit sort of up in front of the center backs to give a 5 sort of look, but it was a little bit different. I thought they suffered in that. So this is all to say that I really like the tactical setup the Galaxy had. I think Greg Vanney executed it in terms of what he wanted to see, and I think the players did their part, right? And let's talk about Riqui Puig's pass. Let's talk about it again.
One more time before we get away from that. I just want to bring up Aguirre one more time. That shot that he scored on was a great goal, as you mentioned. Maybe one of the better goals of the season. Not a high percentage shot. Here's a guy getting his chance to play. I think the default setting there is don't do anything to screw things up. Don't make a mistake. Just try to be mediocre. Just don't make a big mistake. And what does he do? First time he gets the ball, he takes a low percentage shot and scores on it. I mean, that just shows a whole lot of moxie, a whole lot of confidence. And maybe that's the stuff that Greg saw in training. He's there, he watches this guy in training. That's what he made a decision based on. Certainly didn't make it based on a lot of minutes in MLS. So he made it based on what he saw in training. And Aguirre seized the moment. I mean, he easily could have folded, just passed that ball. That would have been the smart thing to do. You got Chicharito, you got Cabral, you have all these other guys that are supposed to score. No, you take the low percentage shot, you score, you set your team up. Again, a team that's won 10 times in 13 games when they score first. You set them up to be successful. That's just a whole lot of confidence and a whole lot of, again, you don't see that from young players very often. And obviously Greg knew what he was getting when he put him in there.
He did. Again, I think you should feel confident that the Galaxy have the depth there at sort of, in that midfield. And that's something that Greg has said he needs. And I think Daniel Aguirre is going to be that guy. And as a matter of fact, if you really think about it, think about the fact the Galaxy can control Daniel Aguirre in terms of contracts here going out. Aguirre is a guy who's not going to be super expensive for a little while, but you're going to be able to use him. And should this Galaxy team get to a playoff run, a guy like Daniel Aguirre being able to come off the bench in certain places could be super useful to the LA Galaxy. Imagine that Delgado, you could sort of transition maybe out of Riqui Puig. You have a lead. Maybe you don't want Riqui to play anymore. You're done with the offense. You want to shut it down. You want to park the bus. You could bring in somebody like Daniel Aguirre, who's more box-to-box, more defensive minded, and he can put it, but he still has the ability to score goals. I'm not saying he's going to do it every time. He saw that lane and he made that run. Kevin, I would argue that if you saw that lane, that you would make that run too, because when you see it open up on the replay, he's sort of like, I guess nobody's going to cover me, so I'm going to run here now, which is what you should do in that spot. But he exploited that and did a great job. Now let's get to
as you mentioned, he does give a different look from all those other guys. Everyone else that plays his position in the midfield, you put Aguirre in it, the team changes. And so that gives Greg another option, but more importantly, it forces opponents to prepare for that as well. Takes some time away from maybe some other preparation they might want to do. They have to prepare for how do we handle Aguirre if he comes in, because he's going to be different than anybody else.
Let's get to Ricky. And by the way, What That gave us another $2 super chat says, Riqui Puig at the final whistle making Galaxy fans all hot and bothered. Did you see Ricky was visibly like elated whenever the Galaxy won that game? He pumped his fist. I mean, This is let's overreact after seeing one game of Riqui Puig kind of doing what he was supposed to be doing. Let's completely overreact with it. The Galaxy may have the steal season in Riqui Puig just because they got him on a TAM deal, just because he's a former Barcelona player, just because he has the pedigree of Europe at 23 years of age. Let's blow it all out of proportion right now. Let's take that, right? If you do not give credit where credit is due, you're not doing this right. Because landing him, even if he fell in your lap, even if Barcelona ticked him off, which is certainly what is being said in the press, certainly by Riqui and everything else, right? So even if Barcelona ticked him off because they didn't take him on the preseason tour, even if they wanted to force him out and all these things just felt, it was still the Galaxy who we have criticized endlessly for not taking advantage of situations. Deservedly, right. If you can't take but we also need to be careful. We can't just give, you suck, and then look at the ones you get right and say you may have got this. Oh,
you got
right.
Lucky,
right? Yeah, you got lucky.
No, they got it right.
I think they're going to get this one right, and I think that the fact they can control this for a certain number of years, I think the buyback from Barcelona is in their favor. All these things are in their favor, and I think that. Somebody said this and they were being condescending, which was like, oh, Riqui finally found his level, like in terms of where he can play, like in terms of where he's good, right? We talk about players all the time who are at USL and they come up and you're like, no, you're not quite, you're too good for USL and you're not good enough for Major League Soccer. You're in that quadruple A sort of limbo land of Major League Soccer, right? And somebody said it to disparage him because he's like, oh, Riqui, look, you can play in MLS. That's cute because MLS isn't that good of a league. But saying that, looking at the pass that he made, and I made a comment that I could do a 90-minute podcast just on Riqui Puig's pass. I could do a 90-minute podcast just on that pass. There are so many things that go into that the Galaxy haven't had, and it's just the ability to think in forward positions, right? So Cabral was back pressing on that ball. Cabral tussles with, and I can't remember which New England defender or midfielder it was, but he tussled with him, and Cabral got a little flick on the ball and hit it back towards Riqui. And this ball's looping, Kevin, right? This isn't a straight ball. This ball's looping. It's looping up in the air. And as it's looping up in the air, Riqui sees it looping. What does Riqui do that almost no other Galaxy player, maybe outside of Victor Vasquez, maybe Chicharito would do it, maybe Brugman would do it, right? There's like 5 people who I would trust to actually do this. Right? Which is, as the ball is looping towards him and he knows he's going to get it, does he keep his eye on the ball? No. He looked. He glanced. He wanted to see what the field looked like in front of him because he knew he was going to bring this ball down and he wanted to try to advance that ball forward. And so as that ball is coming towards him, he looks and he spots Chicharito. What does Chicharito do as soon as he sees that Riqui spotted him? Chicharito takes off. He knows that he's in a position to split the central defenders if the pass is there, if it's weighted properly, if it's weighted properly on turf, all the things that make this difficult, right? Puig gets the ball, fires that ball, little worm burner, right down the middle, splits the New England defense. And I know that there are some people who are like, well, if Andrew Farrell was in position, this never would have happened. But bottom line is, again, it's something we talked about in the first goal, which was the positioning of everybody else and how that goes into affecting the shape of the back line as well. Chicharito did something he almost never does, and he did it a lot in this game, Kevin. He ran from the outside to the in, and I love outside to in runs. They're my favorite because I think that that's putting angles on that makes it easier to find whenever you're hitting passes, but Puig's ball, perfect ball, right in stride. Chicho was able to get it left-footed, wrapped around, almost in the similar spot where Aguirre took the ball and scored from. So they're almost repeats of each other. Just the level and the effort and the expertise on Ricky's pass is a little bit higher than what Chicharito basically did with Aguirre, which was receive that ball in the same general area and put that ball and split the defense twice. So yes, New England kind of screwed up the coverage on that. But the way the Galaxy were and Riqui taking advantage of that, it's just not something you see every time. I used to watch David Beckham peel balls around, Dignity Health Sports Park or Home Depot Center or whatever the field was called whenever he was doing it. And you would sit there and go, oh, come on. Like, nobody makes that pass, like those types of things. And just listen, I'm not going to say it was even on the level of some of the Beckham passes because I don't think it is. But the expertise level on that is in the upper 10% of MLS players who are going to make that pass and make it at the proper weight in order to find people. If they can get more of that, even if it's just once or twice a game, Kevin, those are goals. That's how goals are made.
Yeah, you talked about Ricky's reaction after the game, how excited he was. That surprised me a little bit because when I was in Barcelona a couple of years ago, 2019, he was the talk of the town. Everyone around La Masia and the Barcelona team were talking about Riqui, how he was going to be the next big superstar. He was talked about in the same breath as Iniesta, not quite Messi, but certainly they thought he might be the next great Barcelona midfielder. He was somebody that they really had a lot of hopes for. And they went through, I don't know, 3 or 4 first team coaches there. The systems changed. Riqui definitely got lost in the shuffle. I think he read some of those stories and thought he was going to be the next great big thing. And he wasn't. And then all of a sudden he's playing every weekend for Barcelona Bay and didn't realize what was going on. I think he lost a lot of his confidence. And, so he comes here. I was surprised that he accepted the move the way he did. I mean, a lot of players his age would be disappointed.
Right.
I think somebody advised him, or he's very smart on his own, and realized that this was an opportunity for him to come here to rebuild his game, but to rebuild his confidence, I think, is the biggest, most important thing. He's 23, and after the World Cup, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to think about retiring, maybe change teams. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. Barcelona still owns the ability to recall him. Riqui, this could be a short-term thing. It could be maybe he loves it here. It could be a long-term thing. We don't know, but the idea that this is the end of his career is wrong. I mean, we looked at Miguel Almiron, who came here from South America to prove himself, knowing that he was going to Europe, and now he's a very good player in the Premier League. That could be Ricky's future, but with what happened to him in Barcelona, the skill is still there. I think that he needs to rebuild his confidence, and that was certainly a good start. And see the way he buys into the team is really good too. And that's something that I think a lot of talent scouts don't spend a lot of time looking at. Oh, this guy scored 20 goals. Yeah, but does he celebrate with his teammates? Does he go out with them for dinner afterwards? Is he part of the team? Is he trying to win, or is he trying to put up stats?
I mean, that was some of his sort of knockbacks from Barcelona was the guy likes to party. He's only there for the social media hits, all this sort of thing. And I think he has that in him because he's young. He's a 23-year-old. He's a soccer superstar. Of course, he's going to have that, right? He's got his TikToks. He's got all his stuff that he does. So he's going to have that. But I think that reduced pressure playing for the LA Galaxy. I don't care if the LA Galaxy get the most pressure in all Major League Soccer. Reduced pressure with the LA Galaxy than it is at Barcelona. And his skill level. He is going to be one of the better players in Major League Soccer if he plays to the level that he could play at La Liga. We know this as just, using your eyes and sort of seeing where the different leagues fall. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy for him because as he gets better and better at this, he's going to get more and more physical from the challenge of other players, right? There's going to be other people who are going to want to lay a body on him. So far, he's handled that well because people have taken swipes at him. People have tried to be physical. We're talking about, less than 2 games of actually seeing him play in Major League Soccer. So watch what happens. I think the big deal is that the Galaxy were able to unbalance the midfield of New England a couple times, and that gave Riqui time to operate. And so the more time you give him to operate, and I think Delgado helps that. Thought Aguirre did a great job, by the way, still. So that's not a knock on how that goes either. But yeah, I'm very optimistic. And I think that if we want to overreact, after like seeing him play for 90 minutes, actually 100 minutes plus, because he went the full 90 plus the 8, so 98 minutes, and then whatever he played, like 30 minutes or whatever it was in the other game. So seeing him for 120 minutes or 130 minutes, I'll say that, he's definitely worth the price of admission so far. And the fact that he's on a TAM contract is sort of like, this is high. We talk about high risk, high reward. To me, this is low risk, high reward. And those are the best places to find yourself in for Riqui. So we'll see how that goes on.
And again, we have to give credit to Jovan and the front office for being in position. Being a scout and a front office guy with international soccer is a lot like being a player. Sometimes it pays to be in the right place at the right time. They were around Barcelona. They had made contact with Barcelona, and they were there. I'm sure Barcelona didn't really care who they sent the player to. They probably liked the Galaxy. If you gave them a choice of 10 teams, they might have picked the Galaxy. But I don't think Barcelona said, this is the only team we're going to deal with. The Galaxy just happened to be there, and it was a good deal. Now, here's a question for you. Riqui's in the starting lineup if he's healthy, yes. And he's a starter.
Yep. If
Delgado makes it to Toronto, do you say to Aguirre, hey, you gave us what we wanted. You were great.
Yeah.
and now Delgado's back, he's the guy, or do you tempt fate and say, let's see if you can do it again?
No, because it's too short of a turnaround. I think you asked him to put out a lot of effort and a lot of physical for a guy who isn't used to starting, right? And so if Delgado is 100%, you put him in there. I think if you put Delgado in there knowing maybe he's 85 or 90%, you especially go over to Aguirre and say, listen, we may have to make an early sub if Delgado gets hurt or something happens. If he can't play, he can't go. Then yes, we're taking a risk, but we're also taking that risk knowing that you're here and that you can back him up if that comes down to it. Because Delgado gives us, if I'm Greg Vanney, Delgado gives us the best chance of winning. You did a great job, and if you have to come in, you're going to have to match what he was going to give us, which is a great chance of winning. I love Aguirre. I think he's here for the long term, Kevin. I think all those things are really good in terms of what the Galaxy can control and all these other things. But for me right now, Mark Delgado has been one of the best players on the team for this LA Galaxy this year. Just in terms, and by the way, one of the best midfielders, even if it's box to box or anything else, in Major League Soccer this year. The numbers point that out as well. The Galaxy need him to be good, and that's how they make it to the playoffs. That's how they make it past the first round of the playoffs, all those things. But having Daniel Aguirre coming off the bench, that's such a home run for the LA Galaxy right now.
He's not a young player, right? He's 24, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he is 24. I guess we're not saying he's young, but yeah, I think he is.
No, but I think we think about him in this young group, sort of that. He's not a Jalen Neal, but we kind of think of them as part of that second group.
23, by the way, 23, at least according to my roster as of today. I printed it today, so 23.
Well, maybe you had a birthday since you printed that.
No, it's updates automatically. So as of today, since I printed it, it would have to turn 24 tomorrow in order for that to work. So,
but I mean, I kind of like the way you broke that down because. We've talked about this a million times. I'm really big on the mental aspect of the game and having him sit there and think about what a great game I had, as opposed to going out there. And if he struggles, then all of a sudden am I really the guy in New England or am I the guy now in Toronto that's struggling? It's good to have him sit down and if Greg explained it exactly the way you did, look, you were so great. You're our backup to our best player,
Yep.
We're going to give Mark Delgado. He's out there, but if he just screws up one thing or if he's tired, you're going back in there because you're our guy.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly the approach. You really want to make sure that this guy is confident and you don't want him thinking, I just got lucky. It was just, everything aligned and it was a good game for me. You want him to think that, no, there's a lot more that's going to come out of you. That was just the start.
Did you see the picture the Galaxy put out after the game, by the way, of the guys in the locker room? All like they were, mostly half dressed and they were all taking a picture like they were stoked that they won on the road and all this stuff. And remember, this is the same locker that, like, if you look at that and you say, oh man, those guys love playing for each other, with each other, all these things, right? But if you remember that the narrative, 4 games ago was the locker room is broken, it's they're never gonna, and I push back against that 100%, right? These guys are trying to figure it out, right? That's some of this stuff. They're trying to figure this stuff out. They're trying to be able to solve problems. One of the biggest things that, and with Martin Caceres coming in, you had Chicharito talking about, solving problems in games and understanding the experience level. This team is trying to figure out how to solve these problems in games because nothing is ever exactly the way that you set up for. And by the way, the other team is changing whenever they realize that you are set up for them, right? Bruce Arena molded that. They changed things. They looked at different ways to put people in positions to succeed, and the Galaxy had to try to solve that. Did they do a great job? No, they didn't. They hung on by the skin of their teeth. If you're sitting here saying, oh, the Galaxy dominated that New England game, you didn't watch the game. Right? I mean, New England had every chance to tie and win that game. Absolutely 100%. The Galaxy put themselves in that position to win, though, with those 2 early goals and doing all that stuff. So for me, that's where I'm at. By the way, $5 super chat from Soul. Soul says, Cabral conspiracy. Kevin isn't actually playing when he plays well. It's his brother, and they switch on and off. I don't know that it matters.
I've never seen the two in the same room together.
I mean, that is saying something. $5 super chat from Julio as well says, just want to say what's up and add to the Dr. Pepper puns. I appreciate that. I actually had my Fuji water tonight because I'm fancy. Yes, we had guests over yesterday, so I went out and bought Fuji water, and then they didn't drink any. So it's all for me now. That's just a little aside on that.
What you're talking about, though, is Chicharito said after the game, we talked about the standings, and it's still tight. I think there's 7 teams within 7 points of one another, 3 above the line, 3 below the line. And so if the Galaxy don't win in Toronto, other teams are going to pass them, and it's just going to go that way. And Chicharito talked about that. We've got this unbeaten streak and we're going really well. But he said, if on Wednesday, if we don't draw or win, we're going to hear people talking again about consistency. They're not consistent.
Right.
And they are in that point of the season where, if this happens in April, no one's paying attention. They are in that point of the season where great win in New England. Oh, you lose in Toronto. You guys suck. You're not consistent. You can't pull this off. So I think the players are very aware of that. The fact the stakes have changed a little bit now this late in the season.
Well, and we're also in that I want to see it's not a consistency in results is one thing, and that is going to be the most important thing as we sort of go down this path towards the playoffs, right? Consistency in results, but consistency in play. So you were just, I'll give Greg Vanney credit. You were gritty. You were tenacious. You were, stubborn in the way that you wouldn't let New England score. Jonathan Bond stood on his head. Other guys made plays. I mean, Nick DePuy had basically a goal line save in there as well and made a last ditch effort to get a stop in there. You have guys who are selling out in order to try and preserve the wins. That has to happen from here on out. They know they're in desperation, but they're not playing desperate. I didn't think they played desperate against New England. They played within themselves, and that's what I want to see now.
Well,
yeah,
and that's I think Greg. I think Greg is looking at this as 10 games, not one game. This is the season. It's 10 games. Here's another thing that we talk a lot about. The Galaxy have not have had one playoff appearance since 2016. Both those games were on the road. They haven't played a home playoff game since 2016. And so getting into the playoffs as the number 7 team, that's great. But that means, again, no home playoff games. And 538 gives them a chance to finish in the top 4, which increases the odds of them having a home playoff game. I mean, they're not in the playoffs yet, but it's just interesting that getting into the playoffs is just one step. The way they play at home versus the way they play on the road, they're 4-6-2 on the road, and they have 5 of their last 8 regular season games on the road. I think they'd really like to have a home playoff game. They haven't had one for a long time in the playoffs.
Yeah, away points right now, averaging 1.19 away points this season. So actually, that's not, their average is 1.19 across all their seasons. Right now, they're at 1.17 points per game on the road.
And this win on the road was their first win on the road since May 29th.
Yeah, it was. It's since they beat Austin, right? Was that
Yes.
the last one? Yeah, that's what I thought. I remembered looking that one up too. So yeah, I mean, these are the little things that sort of start popping into your head if we're keeping track of the points as we like to do, points to the playoff. By the way, does anybody else get that pun? Have I already explained the pun? Points to the playoffs, right? Get it? Like you're pointing to the playoffs, points to the playoffs. Okay. No.
Wow.
Good.
You have a day job, right? You should keep it.
Yeah, I will try to do that. 3 points against New England is a big result. So we said the LA Galaxy need to get to 48 points, Kevin. They now have 37 points. Okay, that means
and they're 5-1-1 against the Eastern Conference.
That's right. 11 points are needed still in order to get to that 48 points. There are 24 total points available. Remember how we were saying the Galaxy need to get 50% of the points, 50% of the points, and it's sort of been sticking there? The win in New England means they actually need less than 50% of the points. Now, that would be great if there was even numbers whenever you get 3 points for a win and stuff like that, but it doesn't usually work out that way. So
now, explain the 48 points are not, nothing's guaranteed with 48 points.
Nothing's guaranteed. Well, I mean, can I be honest with you?
It's not like you make the playoffs if you get 48 points. I know your math that you think that they would be in, but I mean, I just want to correct the perception that there's some sort of MLS rule that if you get 48 points, you're in.
You are correct. 48 points is usually the line of which demarks the people who get in. Now, the Galaxy got 48 points last year and lost on a tiebreaker, right? Whole deal. That's not going to happen this year. I think 538, Kevin, which was funny, and some people in the chat caught it. You were sort of, and I won't say lecturing, but you were lecturing us on the wonders of 538, which we use every Thursday show in order to pick stats for who's going to win, who's not going to win, and we give like those. In fact, I will probably give 538 stats for the Toronto game coming up, so we use it all the time. 538 has the playoff line at 45 points. They think it's going to be at 45 points. It's going to be the last one in. So 48 points could be well above the line. Looking at this, so that's sort of we're keeping an eye. We think 48 points is a good target, so that's what we're using, and that's why we're going. Again, Chicharito team of the week. Jonathan Bond somehow, listen, if he gets the shutout, Jonathan Bond is goalkeeper there, and he gets on the actual team of the week.
Who was the goalkeeper for
Breza from Montreal?
Okay,
I didn't see that.
Montreal is really playing well right now.
They are, and remember, the Galaxy absolutely smacked their bottom whenever they came to play. That was a July 4th game, wasn't it, where they beat them 4-0? Yes, yes, it was. Yes, Kevin. Yes, it was. So the Galaxy again. if the Galaxy can get to MLS Cup, Kevin, I'm saying they have a pretty good chance playing against the Eastern Conference right now. Although I think the best team in Major League Soccer right now is in the Eastern Conference with the Philadelphia Union and their 2 back-to-back 6-0 wins. Ridiculous.
Yeah, they have 116 goals this month.
They have so many. I think somebody said they have 25 goals in their last 10 games, so averaging 2.5 goals per game. It's a tremendous amount whenever you stack that up against 10 games. And I think they've only allowed like 20 goals. Is that correct? They are.
Yeah, they have a chance. They have a real good. Mathematically, they're going to break the MLS record for goal differential.
Amazing. So much. I mean, so much fun. And by the way, I used to just rag on Philadelphia as being, remember whenever it was like during the pandemic and everybody's like, oh, Philadelphia's so good. And I'm like, calm down. They didn't play anybody. And now I still feel that way. So whenever they play the Western Conference, we'll see.
Do you have the standings there? What's their goal differential right now? Because apparently only 2 teams in MLS history, the Galaxy and LAFC, have had a plus 40 or better goal differential.
Plus 37 right now.
Yeah, 37. So they look like they're a lock to do it, barring any disaster. They'll be the 3rd team ever to have a plus 40 goal differential. And the record, LAFC in 2019, 45, I think, is the record. They look like they got a real good chance. I mean, if they just, from here on out, if they just a goal a game better, if they average a goal a game better, they're going to do it, right? Because they have probably 8 games left.
They should. They're also 11 goals better on defense than anybody else in the Eastern Conference. I think that's pretty incredible. Listen. And you know what was funny? In the Discord, we were like, okay, so Kevin, can you name who's their biggest player? Like off the top of your head. I was sitting there. I'm like, the only person I really know is Bedoya and Blake. That was that was it. That's crazy that you have a team that is this good doing what they're doing, and I can name. Now, listen, I completely.
Isn't Ben Franklin from Philadelphia?
Yeah, he is. Congratulations, good job. Yeah, that was.
Is he still on the team?
Yeah, I heard he got electrocuted. So it was. Wow,
that's good for you. Congratulations.
Wow. Did I tell you, by the way, total aside, that we generally tell like the worst dad jokes in the history on this show and stuff like that. And that I've been doing like train stuff with I joined a train club, did all this stuff. I can fill you guys in some other time. This is not the time. But what I learned was that whenever I got a certification at my train club, I'm now a conductor. The guy said, hey, listen, you need to be careful around electricity. And I said, well, I'm always careful around electricity. He goes, yeah, but you're a conductor now. And I was like, is that train joke worse than every dad joke? Train jokes are worse than dad jokes. Anyway, that was it.
Well, I'll give you I'll give you a good joke. This is from the esteemed Mrs. Panda. We watched the documentary about Marcel Marceau and his role. A lot of people don't know this. He played a very prominent role in the French resistance in Lyon during World War II. And the next morning we were talking about it, and I said, man, Marcel Marceau and the French resistance, I didn't know anything about it. And she said, yeah, he didn't talk about it much.
Oh, and you told that joke on here before, and I still like it.
I still think it's great. Yeah, I never give her credit, though.
Yeah, don't. You don't want her head.
I need to steal that.
Yeah. Let's see. We talked about team of the week. By the way, if you're looking at Martin Caceres, we have not been told whether or not he's going to get his visa in time for Toronto. In fact, I wasn't even told whether or not he traveled with the club. I was hoping to find out. But then apparently I spelled his name wrong in the text message and I was punished. So I will never listen. They were never going to tell me anyway. That was really what was going to happen, right? So it's a surprise if and when he shows up. But Caceres also is going to wear the number 22. We updated our roster now that shows a total of 32 players on it. You have Jorge Villafana, who's on season-ending injury list, and then you have Marcus Ferkranus, who's actually transferred to Phoenix Rising. In order to get yourself a 30-man roster, and I put Caceres's salary as about $164,000 because I know it has to be less than that. I actually don't think it's that high. So, but it's in there. And so we have final numbers for everything. So as of today, your average age for the LA Galaxy, Kevin, 26.19. The median age is 26, just happens to fall that way. So again, for everybody who says it's all, no more old guys.
It's got to be one of the younger teams in the league.
26 is a pretty good one. Now, again, we could look at starting lineups, and if you really wanted to go do average age of starting lineups across the whole year, that would also give you a better idea. I guarantee you it skews older than 26, right? So there's those sorts of things to sort of pay attention to and watch. The one thing, I have all my charts, and you guys know I have all these charts, and I keep them updated. I have about 20 charts that get updated after every single game. So there were just a couple that I wanted to pull out, and I wanted to highlight, and it was this one. And I was talking to Kevin about it beforehand. Now, this is the number of points through 26 games. This is across all LA Galaxy seasons. And as you can see in 2020 disappears because they only played 25 games, right? Was it 25? I think it was 25. The Galaxy didn't even play 25, didn't they? They ended up playing like 24.
Played 22.
Yeah,
22.
Or 22. So whatever. 2020 disappears. Other seasons are going to start disappearing as well. Whenever it gets to about 28, other seasons start dropping off. There's all these things because you didn't always play 34 games. But the LA Galaxy right now at 37 points. That is 1 point behind their 2021 total through 26 games of 38 points. Okay, and there were a lot of people who were making a big deal about the 2021 LA Galaxy being so much better than this LA Galaxy team, and I didn't believe that. Okay, and I guess all those people have like ridiculously short memories, and they didn't remember that the LA Galaxy through like the last 13 games of the season in 2021 like didn't win any games. Like they won 1 or 2 down the stretch.
Yeah, this is where they really hit the skids.
Right, and so if you're looking at that and sort of seeing all these different things, you have to think right now, with these things almost being equal and understanding that 2021 was a disaster towards the end of the season, that eventually this 2022 team is going to finish on top of that 2021 team. Again, that's being a little forward in predicting some things. But as far as I'm concerned, looking at the trends and sort of how they're going and getting 3 points in a place I didn't think they were going to get. And quite honestly, if they get 1 point in Toronto, I think it was probably, didn't I say like if they got 4 points, that it would be orgasmic out of this, and 6 points is an impossibility, right? It's like, it's one of those things. Now you're sort of in this position where you're like, this road trip could be the thing that turns the LA Galaxy season around. But more important than this Toronto game, Kevin, is the Kansas City game coming up on Sunday. So yes, we're going to talk about Toronto game. Yes, it's important. But for me, while the Galaxy will have to play one game at a time, you got to win your home games from here on out. And as our schedule,
you only got 3 of them.
Yeah, that's it. And you're done.
And they're all, well, the first 2 are winnables. Kansas City and Colorado. RSL is coming in for the penultimate game of the season.
Yep.
Last home game, Fan Appreciation Day. How much do the Galaxy appreciate their fans? Do they win that RSL game or not?
I don't know. You know, Fan Appreciation Day has a horrible hit track record to it. So I don't know that you can really count on that. So again, points on the road are going to be important. But that Kansas City game is a more important game right now than the Toronto game. But chance to get 3 points in Toronto, a chance to do something in Toronto, and I think the LA Galaxy need to attack that at any chance. By the way, a win or a draw, Kevin, against Toronto, and it would tie their longest unbeaten streak of the season, which is 4, and also the longest unbeaten streak in 2021 was 4 games as well. So if the Galaxy could possibly go 4 or 5 games unbeaten here, it would do a world of good for them in terms of their playoff runs and everything else. And by the way, the first time the LA Galaxy have scored first when they were away since that Austin game, Kevin. So I thought that was interesting. Got the win on that as well. All right. You ready to talk a little bit about Toronto and LA Galaxy?
Let's talk about Toronto and the LA Galaxy. This is now BMO at one point I thought had an artificial turf, but they are grass now.
They have had grass for a very long time, sir. But yes, whenever they first came into the league, they did have artificial turf. And then Tim Lewicki went up there and said, you can't have a really good soccer team on artificial turf. And so then they put grass in. But, you know.
And he also expanded it and made it a proper soccer facility. It had like 11 seats when they first opened it. Now it's got, 32,000 something?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And I was going to say that they probably had grass in that stadium for like 10 years now. So way to be up on top of your stadium information.
But see, I knew the history.
Good job. You just thought it was more recent than it was. So anyway, BMO Field in Toronto, Spectrum Sportsnet, LAGalaxy.com is where you can find that. It's a 4:30 p.m. kickoff, 4:30 p.m. TV start time, 4:38 p.m. kickoff time. That means this game will be going on whenever I'm still at work, which is always fun and exciting. So I'll figure out how to cover that game somehow, some way. So that way we can do it. If you look at these two teams and they're sort of head-to-heads, the LA Galaxy all-time 7-5-6, 27 points. TFC 5-7-6, 21 points. Where they stand right now, Galaxy 7th in the Western Conference, 12th in the Supporters Shield. And you have 10th in the Western Conference for Toronto and 20th in the Supporters Shield. But If you look at just the last 5 games, Toronto has 10 points. They're 3-1-1 in their last 5 games. The LA Galaxy 2-2-1 with 7 points in their last 5 games.
But Toronto faces a real difficult challenge getting into the playoffs, though. I think they're in 10th. They have 3 teams to jump over. They're at 28 games. The Galaxy, the big advantage for the Galaxy right now is they still have those games in hand against all the other teams they're competing with. That's just a monumental advantage at this time of year, I think. Toronto doesn't have that. They have to climb over a whole bunch of teams. And the thing when you have to climb over multiple teams is, you may get lucky and one of the teams you're chasing loses or draws. Well, the other one wins, and you really didn't advance that far. So, and the other thing is you haven't mentioned it, maybe this is coming up, but a lot of history with these coaches, Vanney and Bob Bradley. Bradley having been at LAFC, now going to Toronto to coach his son. Michael has a history with the Galaxy, doesn't really like the Galaxy all that much. Vanney was the guy that turned Toronto around, took over a team that had never had a winning record, much less a playoff berth, took them to the only treble in MLS history in 2017, took them to 2 MLS Cup finals, almost won a second Supporters Shield in his last year in Toronto. It was in 2020.
Yep. Or 2019, maybe? 2019, maybe? Yeah. No. I can't remember.
Sometime.
Yeah,
he almost
like
did
that.
it. And he told me he thought he was going to get a good welcome home, but then he didn't really sell that opinion to me. And he mentioned a little bit that there's a lot of people there that are smart and understand that sometimes people have to make decisions and go. I think he feels like there are some people in Toronto felt like that he knew the franchise was in trouble when he left, that he knew that there wasn't much there, that he got out when the getting out was good. I don't think any of that's true. I mean, I think he may have known that, but I think he would have been up to the challenge if the Galaxy hadn't come. The Galaxy was the job that he was created to do. This is the franchise he started with. He understands the history. He had to take this job to come back and coach the Galaxy. In Toronto, he was able to get out of the Toronto job and come back. I think he fears that there are some people in Toronto that don't really understand the opportunity he had and may hold that against them. But he was looking forward to going home. And then if Delgado makes the trip there, Raheem Edwards, Victor Vasquez, all of the coaching staff and some of the physios and the sports medicine people, all were on that staff in Toronto. Vanney brought everybody with him, which is a good thing to do because, with the exception of Kevin Hartman, it's a good thing to do because you have that chemistry. So it's kind of like old home week. It's like going back to your high school reunion for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, it feels that way. And Greg we were talking to him on Thursday, and he was sort of saying that he didn't want to think about Toronto because that was a game that was too far. Like it was, we had to focus on New England and then Toronto. But then he also said, obviously, I'm looking forward to going back. And I think Damien asked if if the boys or his kids were going to go with him, and he's like, they have soccer games, they have school, they have all the things. And he goes, so I don't think anybody's going to go. And he goes, it's unfortunate to have it in the middle of the week to be this game because we would have probably made a big deal about it going back and saying hi to everybody and doing that. So I think you have that. I think Vanney will get a warm welcome. I think just like Bruce Arena will come back, and whenever Bruce comes in, he always gets a warm welcome from Galaxy fans. So I think that'll be good. I think there's definitely going to be something from the LA Galaxy in terms of wanting to prove that they're better than Toronto on the night. So I think that gives a little added juice to whatever is going to come in here. And let's be very clear. Whenever you have Federico Bernardeschi and Lorenzo Insigne on your team, that are scoring. Listen to this. This is crazy. And I was looking this up. I know they've been scoring goals, but I haven't really been paying that much attention. The two of them both played 7 games. Both started 7 games, by the way, since they signed and joined. Bernardeschi has 5 goals and 3 assists, so 8 goal actions. And Insigne has 4 goals and 2 assists, so 6 goal actions in that. Insigne
14 combined.
Yeah, Insigne
which is a good first half for Philadelphia.
I was going to say, everybody's happy except for Philadelphia. But what they're doing right now, and certainly Bradley has them set up in a 4-3-3. You have Michael Bradley in the center. I can actually pull up the lineup cards a little bit here, so that way we can get a general idea of sort of what they have been looking at. But with Insigne on the left and Bernardeschi on the right, and Bernardeschi can invert inside. He had some great left-footed shots. Insigne hit a ball against Miami that was like a shot from Bernardeschi that gets deflected out, and it's just sort of like floundering outside the box, and everybody's sort of like, I'll get to it. Like, that's not a danger position, and Insigne laid like a full volley on it and launched it into the corner. these are guys who can score from any position. Insigne, Bernadeschi, Akinola as well has sort of been playing in the center of that 4-3-3 up top. Michael Bradley in the center of the field. Jonathan Osorio is their leading goal scorer. So here's the thing about Toronto is that they have a ton of talent, Kevin, with Insigne and Bernadeschi. And listen, Michael Bradley, he's gotten slower, but he's still Michael Bradley. He can still play. Jonathan Osorio can still play and still score goals and do all those things. But they're very top-heavy. Very top-heavy. Bob Bradley has not had a chance to come in here and fix the defense, has not had a chance to do anything. And so when you look at it, there are some real weak links in this Toronto team, and I think you see it in certain instances against teams who can pressure the goal. So against the back four, and certainly against Alex Bono, who I think has been horrible in the last couple of games.
And Mark-Anthony Kaye is back there too. Bob Bradley went out and got him from Colorado, I believe.
Yeah, didn't he have a season-ending injury or something like that?
Yeah, he may. I know he got injured. I didn't know that it was season-ending. I know that he hasn't played in the last couple of games. He came back, and part of the deal was getting ready for the Olympics with Canada.
Yeah.
At BMO Field is their home field. Say those Italian names again.
Insigne and Bernadeschi.
See, I can't do that. That's really good.
Well, I mean, they're very good players. You should probably learn their names. It's like Zlatan, although you never got Zlatan right.
I never got. No, he's gone now. I don't have to worry about it. So the Galaxy flew in tonight from Boston to Toronto tonight, correct?
They did. So they regened on Monday morning. They had a training session basically in Boston. They may have even done it at the hotel gym where they regened and got their blood moving and doing all the stuff that they regen after a game. And then they were supposed to hop on a plane and fly to Toronto this evening. And we know that they landed. We saw the video, and there was a flight tracker that was following them as well. So
now, my guess is Greg's meeting with some old friends, and adult beverages will be consumed.
I mean, listen, on the road and how you do that, absolutely. I mean, that's what you would do 100%. I have been in areas, I've been to places like the night before a game, and not necessarily players, but coaches or technical players or people who don't have to go run for 90 minutes the next day and keep their bodies in top physical condition will be out in certain places and enjoy a drink or get together with old friends so they can see them in sort of every city that they go to. Broadcasters do it. Sometimes they run into each other at the same places. Like it starts to get very incestuous whenever you look at how close everybody is related and sort of where it all goes. So, absolutely. I would expect that happens, that type of thing. Here's the thing for Toronto is certainly with Bernadeschi, with Insigne, they are an attack-minded team, and that's how they win games is to attack, because they have the horses to attack. They don't have the horses to defend. And so I think if you're looking for a situation where the Galaxy could be take advantage of it, it is the fact that I think that Toronto will overcommit on offense sometimes. I don't think they stay back far enough, and their defense is super suspect. And so if you can be in the right positions and take advantage at the right times, you can make Toronto really have to work for anything that they get. So I don't expect Bob Bradley's team is going to sit back, because most of his teams don't sit back. I wouldn't expect that Greg Vanney is going to sit out there and say, oh, well, we're going to go, match it with a 4-3-3. I think that very likely if Sega Coulibaly is healthy enough, they'll go with a 5-man back line again to sort of try to stymie and slow down things. And perhaps Raheem Edwards on the left, if he's available, so that way he can be more of a wing back with Julian Araujo, so that way they can work those areas and transition. But you're looking at guys like Mark Delgado if he travels, which I think is like 20-30%, quite honestly. I don't think that they're going to risk it, especially after winning in New England. It's sort of like, why risk bringing Mark Delgado there? Let's make sure he's fully healthy for Sporting Kansas City coming up on Sunday. Those types of things. So I think the Galaxy really do have a chance to sort of counter Toronto, and I think the Galaxy are better in those positions. I think they did a good job against New England. I think they can do it against Toronto as well.
You talk about Bob Bradley and his formation and the style of play. When he was here at LAFC, of course, it was all attacking. He liked to compare himself to Barcelona a lot, the style of play, not necessarily the players. And he sort of held the team and the players up to that standard. I bring that up because you mentioned their lack of defense. When I was in Barcelona and was at the Academy La Masia, where all of these great young players trained, I was there for an entire day watching all of these kids from the smallest up to the B team training. And at the end of the day, I came to one of the coaches and said, I saw all the stuff you guys are doing offensively and all the skill sessions that you had and all the training. I said, but what about playing defense? I didn't see anyone practicing defense. And the guy looked at me like I had four heads. He goes, we don't play defense. I said, well, how do you defend? He goes, we don't. We just win the ball back. So there is no the idea that they don't play defense. That's totally
Right.
the Barcelona style.
Yeah. By the way, people are asking about Caceres, and I don't know. I don't know what his status is. I would imagine they're very much trying to play this, underground, right? Because they want it to be a surprise if he's going to be available. And again, if he is available, does he start? I doubt it, just because he hasn't played in so many months, right? And so there's some of this, right? There's some of this to take into account. So I don't know that he'll be ready for how that all goes. I would like to say the Galaxy beat Toronto last time they played in 2019 on a July 4th game. That game, I didn't write down the score. Oh, I did. It was, oh no, I didn't. I didn't write down the score. It doesn't matter. They beat them on July 4th. But the one thing that sort of popped out to me is that all the games, and there haven't been a ton of games that these two teams have played against each other with Eastern Conference, Western Conference, everything else sort of going there. But the only time the LA Galaxy have ever beaten Toronto in Toronto was on June 6th, 2009. Just would like to point that out. It's not exactly a place where you would say the Galaxy have success. There's some draws in there whenever you go back and look at the stats, but it's not a place where the Galaxy have had a ton of success. And on the road, I don't know that you can, but certainly across multiple time zones, that's a difficult one. Kevin, here's my prediction. If the Galaxy get the win against Toronto, which I think is mind-blowingly huge. If the Galaxy get the win against Toronto, if they come back and they win against Sporting Kansas City, they make the playoffs. And fairly easily, they'll make the playoffs. In fact, that goes into sort of 538's hold. They have a chance to get a home playoff game. That's how important this stretch of games is. Now, I'm not placing the importance on Toronto, right? Because that game is too much of a toss-up. The importance one is on Sporting Kansas City. And the Galaxy released some stuff about the SKC game coming up on Sunday, September 4th. Again, this is a 5 p.m. kickoff time, which is really going to hurt everybody because I think it's supposed to be about 95 degrees in Carson at 5 p.m. So that'll be fun. We'll look forward to that. But that's something to sort of look at. They're also doing some of the soccer rings. I guess they have a limited number of those 2002 championship rings that they were going to give everybody at one point in 2020, and then the pandemic shut everything down. I'm looking at a whole bunch of other things. Soccer Fest is going to be there. They're going to have some guys from the 2002 MLS Cup championship team. We'll talk more about that on Thursday with the LA Galaxy Foundation and everything else. All right.
Well, you said that if they get the 6 points on this road trip, 3 in Toronto, that would be orgasmic. And
no,
and
I said 4 points.
I can't unhear that. That was like too much information. I don't even want to. I don't want to see evidence of that.
I don't know.
If they get the 4 points, just tell me.
Just
tell me.
Just tell you. I'll just.
Yeah, I don't
FaceTime
want
you.
to see.
No,
yeah.
it'll be. No, you don't want to. Okay. I'm just telling you, it's very much not expected. Right.
Yeah,
and,
important would have sufficed. You could have said it would be very important.
No, because important is an overused word and it loses its importance. All right, that's why you can't. Just
but see,
important.
orgasmic just conjures up some.
It is,
I don't need to go there.
It is so unlikely that it derives pleasure from its mere happening. Right? Does that to me explains it perfectly. I don't understand. Again, you're supposed to be the writer here, and you're afraid of using words. I'm just saying. I know the LA Times probably is like, you probably can't say that in the LA Times, but I'm just telling you that you should maybe expand your vocabulary. Cal State Fullerton maybe wasn't the best choice for me.
Maybe for some of us, orgasm isn't that rare a thing.
It's not. It's not.
Okay.
I'm just saying. I like how we went PG-13 real fast on this. You know.
We went right past PG-13.
Have you been watching? You watch some of the what is it? Is it Welcome to Wrexham? Is the official title?
Welcome to Wrexham. Very, very good. You should check it out.
Very good. I've been watching the first couple episodes and it was really good. But Ryan Reynolds is like, PG-13. Does that mean we get X number of? And he uses some expletives and one of these. And I was laughing. I go, I feel that in my soul whenever you say.
What was the documentary on Southampton that was really good? It's very much like that.
Oh, you mean Sunderland?
Sunderland, excuse me. Yeah, the Sunderland one. It's very. Yeah. It resembles that a lot. But I think it's a little bit better.
Okay, I've been watching. I'm very, very much happier about it. Let's see. Predictions then. I mean, normally you and I don't do predictions, only because the news side of us says, don't do predictions because it shows that you're biased in some way. You're expecting an outcome. But I also feel like predicting things that we watch on a regular basis, it comes from knowledge. So, I mean, and by the way, we're always wrong. So that always helps too.
Yeah.
For me, 2-2, which is one less than a 3-3, just in case you were keeping track. So 2-2. I think.
I'm going to guarantee a Galaxy victory here by saying it's 3-1 Toronto.
That's you reverse psychology.
Reverse psychology, exactly.
All right. Yeah, by the way, you can watch the Welcome to Wrexham. It's on Hulu, I think, and is it on Fox as well?
FX.
Oh, FX. Yeah. That's what it was. My mom was like, it's on Fox. Yeah, I should have checked. So FX, it's Hulu.
You know, BBC Radio in Wales had me on to talk about the show, and I have prepared all this stuff to talk about how the show and how the team is doing all that. What they really wanted to know is, what do people in LA think of Wales and what do they think of Wrexham? It was just like, you guys know we're here? You found us?
No, I didn't know you were here, but it's nice that you are there. I mean, that's how I usually feel. I'm glad that you are, and certainly the history of the club is very interesting. Anyway, we're getting totally sidetracked. Just really good doc, and you should watch it. Docu-series, yeah, because there's multiple
We're in
episodes.
Hollywood. You have to get it right.
Yeah,
yes.
Of course we do. All right, that's where we sit. LA Galaxy coming up against Toronto FC again, 4:30 TV time, 4:38 p.m. Spend your early afternoon with Joe, Kobe, and Nikki on this particular game, and they will get you ready for this Toronto game, which should be, I mean, I've been saying that this Galaxy season has been some of the most interesting, fascinating seasons that we've covered in a while, Kevin, because I never know which Galaxy team is going to show up. Had no idea that, Aguirre was going to play out of his mind. The Galaxy were going to shut down New England. And now we sort of go to Toronto. Again, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of extra in this. There's a lot of extra juice in this that you don't expect from just a normal East-West, towards the end of the season conference game. Toronto fighting for playoffs, Galaxy fighting for playoffs. There's a lot of stories that you can put behind it. But for me, if you're looking for any sort of motivational stuff, for me, it's Greg Vanney going home. It's for the players who have played in Toronto. It's like, does Victor Vasquez start because he played in Toronto, right? And yes, you had Riqui and he played well, right? But do you want to give him a little break because he's not used to playing that much yet? There's some little things that Greg could overthink or underthink or twist or tweak. And whenever they do, how does that affect the match? And I think that's going to be the interesting one. And we have two guys who play chess too, with Greg Vanney and Bob Bradley. So that for me is another little added cherry on top.
Dayon plays chess too. It's really good.
I heard he's good at it though. I don't even know.
So Bondi plays too, I think.
Yeah, but he only picked it up because he wants to hang out with Dayon.
Because Dayon,
yeah, I know. I'm sure that's how they pick up chicks. That's how they go and play chess in the park. That's how they do it. All right, are we good? I think we're good.
One last thing. Next time you see me on this pod or anywhere else, it'll be a different me. I have a birthday between now and the next pod, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am. But
73.
No, close.
Okay.
If you take both of your children, add their ages together, double it, and add them to yours, you're still not even close.
Oh, I was going to start doing the math.
I'm old enough to remember when the Galaxy used to go to MLS Cups. That's how old I am.
Well, I mean, so am I. That doesn't really help you. 41. You're 50.
Nope.
60?
Nope. Keep going.
61?
Keep going.
62?
Not yet. Well, right now.
Okay, right now you're 62. So 63?
Yes.
Wow, very nice. Very nice. That's a good age. That's good. You're way younger than Larry.
Larry Morgan calls me Sonny.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's hey kiddo. That's him. How he does.
Youngster.
Well, happy birthday, sir. I hope you spend it with somebody you love.
I'll try to find somebody.
And I was gonna say I hope your wife allows it. So there we go. Very good. Somebody said, yeah, you should see the guesses. I'm not going to say the guesses in the chat room. 80 is a possibly one.
Yeah.
One more than 68. There's a whole bunch of those. So anyway, that's where you're sort of that. All right. That's it. We're done. We're good. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at kbaxter11. Head on over to latimes.com where you can find all of his writings. He's there. He's willing. He's waiting to tell you and talk to you about soccer. So please do that. Sign up for his newsletter as well, latimes.com. If you're looking for me on Twitter, at jguesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com where you can find all of our stuff, all of our videos, all of the press conferences, all that fun stuff, cornerofthegalaxy.com. All right. For Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.